I've worn a lot of hats in my time, some tidy, some battered, all heavy in their own way. I've locked cell doors on men who'd just as soon see me dead, traveled dark streets where every shadow felt alive, and sat in a cruiser waiting for trouble to find me. I've also stood in a classroom trying to teach teenagers about a world they don't yet understand. Paul asked me to tell the story of those jobs one by one. But the truth is, every job comes with some rules, some written, some unwritten. This begs the question, can a detective get away with something that a corrections officer can't? This is Downright Mindful. Let's begin. Man, that's downright mindful.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Did we just become best friends? Yep.
We don't make mistakes. We have happy accidents.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I don't need backups. I'm going to Harvard.
Remember these words. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Do or do not. There is no try.
I still have a dream.
Welcome to Downright Mindful, a meeting place where we explore meaning, seek connections, and examine the relationships between people, events, and the ideas that shape our world. Hosted by me, Matt Paris, my friend and colleague Paul Sawswell. Each episode will dive into thoughtful conversations that spark reflection and curiosity. Thanks for joining us. Now let's get right down to it. We're live, Paul.
Oh, okay.
We're not actually live, but you know what I meant. You took the,
We're live action heroes, man.
Yeah, buddy.
All right. You gave me homework.
Is that right?
Yep. So homework for me is not going to find answers. Homework for me is going to find questions. So you ready? I'm just hopping right in.
Okay.
I need to know every level of law enforcement you were, go with me on this because I don't know how to say it. You were named. So when you first got a job with the Bradley County Sheriff's Office, what was your title?
Corrections officer.
Okay. Now walk me through. So then you took, whether it's a promotion or just another position, what else were you? What else did you become? What did you end at before you became criminal justice teacher?
Well, so 20 years old, corrections officer in the sheriff's office. You could get that without even a post certification, which is the certification you'd get to go be a patrol officer. And, at the time, Sheriff Dan Gilley, it's a different time than it is now. Like right now, you're having to find candidates that are pretty young, that you have some background on and make hires a lot earlier than what you would have made then. But 20 at that time was super young, like that. Rightly so. I don't want to touch these guys until they've cooked a little more. Yeah. But Dan Gilley took a chance on me, put me in the jail at 20. And then...
So you're a corrections officer?
Yeah. I'm
at the age of 20?
Yeah, I'm a corrections officer at the age of 20. They walked me into a room with about 50 dudes behind cells and hit the button and opened all their cells. This is a direct supervision jail.
Gosh.
Meaning you're in the day room with all of these people. It's not a linear jail to where you envision someone behind bars. You've probably seen inside there.
What's the youngest inmate in there at that time? I mean, just make something up. I mean, you don't have to remember, but.
Oh, it's 18.
Okay.
Yeah. There was times that we would book people at midnight on their 18th birthday. They would bring them over from the juvenile detention center, and then they would be booked into big boy jail because it's law. You have to be housed out of sight and sound of juveniles if you're an adult, and 18, you're an adult.
So that's the letter of the law.
That's the letter of the law, yeah.
That is
They'll
the
shut
first
you down
time
for that.
I used that phrase today, and it will not be the last.
Okay.
All right, oldest in the jail?
Oh, I mean, I'd say that varies, but I mean,
Oldest fellow you can remember being in there?
70s.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay.
pretty fair condition, 70s. You know, if they're too decrepit or whatever, they would, you know, at a local level or a less serious level, they would end up with some sort of furlough or an excusal by a judge. And at the,
Does that mean they'd send them home?
yeah, if you're, you know, let's say you're 75 and you're a convicted misdemeanor, you're going to do 1129 in the county jail. And you get in there and you start having like legitimate issues that now jail is deteriorating your physical health. Yeah, it wouldn't be a big deal for that judge to make alternate decisions for you.
Is that just an age thing? What if I'm 29 and I fall into this fit of depression and now I'm not eating and now I'm like, it's just this spiral, right? You follow me?
Yeah, you're going to go to a mental health hospital.
Okay.
Yeah. Another example I can think of is a federal prisoner one time, because the next job I'm going to get, and this is jumping ahead, is I'm still under the corrections umbrella, but I get moved to where I'm never working in the jail. All I'm doing is transporting prisoners, because at times prisoners need to go places. And there are, you know, arrests happening around the country of people who are wanted by your jurisdiction. So you need people that do that. We specialize in supervising prisoners in a non-secure transporting prisoners.
Yeah.
It's a whole.
Tell me some stories. Different title? Are you still a corrections officer?
Yeah. At the crux of it, I'm a corrections officer. I just have a specialty now. I can, you know, some of our guys have flown with prisoners. I was at one time certified to fly with prisoners, but I never got to do it. What I was going to tell you is there was a prisoner that came in, a federal prisoner, and he had received his sentence, and I don't remember the details of it, but it was a big marijuana case at the time. And to get a big federal sentence for marijuana, it's got to be super large amounts of marijuana. I knew the amounts at the time, but I don't now. But we're talking about hundreds of pounds probably. As part of transport, if you had a doctor's appointment, we'd take you there. And this guy, you know, a doctor will come see you in the jail, and nurses are in the jail all the time, but sometimes there's things that need to be tended to outside of those walls. And this guy had one of those. So we took him to I think we started out at an ear, nose, and throat specialist. He was having some issues. Through that process, cancer was discovered in his, around his thyroid, like up in his neck area. In a progression of just maybe a month or less, a couple weeks, we multiple appointments with this guy, and that doctor at the time, who I won't name, and you know, I don't even remember the prisoner's name, but he showed us the progression from one appointment to the next, and it was astronomical. I mean, it went from like a mass up here around his neck and shoulder area to like, now it's down in his lung, it's around his lung. And within, like I said, a very short period of time, we received paperwork from the U.S. Marshals to release the prisoner. I mean, years and years and years and years and years this guy had sentenced to, and he was released to go home be with his family. And the doctor shared with us that like, this guy's not going to live. He's not going to live.
Did you ever get word from him or about him?
No, I did not.
Not from him, but
no,
about
this
him.
was a Mexican fellow, and it's assumed that he went to be with his family somewhere, wherever they were.
Pause. Side question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you took him to the hospital. Well, you took him to the doctor. You took him to a specialist.
We took him to a specialist. Yeah.
Is that his? Go with me on this. Insurance, or is that the jail is paying for him through taxpayer dollars?
Yeah, taxpayer dollars, almost certainly.
Yeah.
Almost certainly, yeah. I
Why-
can't be
why-
100,000% sure,
Yeah.
but in this case, for sure, I can't tell you generally what that would be, because I'd say there are times when your insurance may apply.
Because like if I go to jail, does like my bank account get frozen?
Mm-mm.
Does my insurance get frozen? Does my just life get frozen?
There's certain government
I don't know.
benefits.
I've never even wondered about this before.
There's certain government benefits that would get frozen, for instance, if you're drawing some sort of welfare or something like that and you get convicted and sentenced to a prison term, you're not going to just keep rolling in checks, as far as I know.
Because so many times it's been said, well, that's my taxpayer dollars, right? And we point at the prison, we point at the prisoners, we point at a criminal, that's my, and it's a complaint, but like, I've never really paused and went, you know what? Like, what does that actually look like? I know you got to feed them and you got to house them and you got to hire corrections officers and there's all kinds of you gottas.
Yeah.
But I just thought, what about the personal money aspect of things? I don't know.
Now, if you come to jail and you have a pre-existing condition that you've been getting treatment for all along, that's pretty well going to stay the same. They're going to make sure that you have the right to, to preserve your quality of life, whatever it is, and whatever the case may be. But a lot of that kind of cost is going to keep being paid for the same way it has been, But if you come to jail completely healthy, and within that jail period you develop some sort of, whatever it may be, some kind of issue, then there's a lot of that cost falling on the government.
Okay. No idea that thought would even cross my mind today. So keep going, because I got to get you through this.
Yeah. So,
and then I got to ask
I'm still a corrections officer. I transport prisoners. I tell people all the time I had never been north of Cincinnati or much south of it. I lied. I'd been to Panama City when I was a teenager. East and west, I wasn't. I hadn't been to Asheville yet. West, I hadn't been to Memphis yet. But during that time, I went. I expanded those little borders, driving all over the east side of the country. We had sort of a 600-mile rule. If they call us and it's a felony, and it's within 600 miles, we didn't even talk to the DA about it. We made plans and we went and got them. It's over 600 miles. We go to the DA and say, hey, how bad do you want this guy? And there were times where they'd say, let them release them or whatever. The furthest I drove was Liberal, Kansas. Anyways, I do that for a few years. And then I go through the police academy in my late 20s. And I move out to patrol.
Pause, because my brain, why haven't you gone through the police academy already?
It's mainly like a cost issue. So I'm employed and I'm in corrections. I'm at the sheriff's office. I'm reaping all the benefits of those patrol officers. And there was even a time where I thought, heck, man, this is kind of an art form for me. This is a skill for me and I'm good at it. And I may be a corrections officer till I retire. I don't know. And I just never pushed. I went to the sheriff's office with that in mind. I'll go do some time in the jail. I'll build a skill set here that'll help me. And when I'm a little older and I've sort of waited my turn, I'll get them to send me through the police academy and I'll go to patrol. And there's this mixture of that's a very competitive line at the time that you're waiting in. And in that time, you have bukus of people that are, they're 20 years old and either their parents are sending them through the police academy or they're saving their money and sending themselves through the police academy. And those guys come to the sheriff's office and they're already post-certified. They can go straight to training and go to patrol. Well, I'm, an early 20s dude that's paying a mortgage and I got a baby at home and I got a wife and nobody's putting me through the police academy. And even if I decide I'm going to pay for this myself, I got to take 10, 11, 12 weeks off of work to go. So you're sort of in this spot where the sheriff's office they got a lot of control in that scenario. They've got the leverage. So it's, essentially they're going to decide when I go. And I almost didn't go. I can remember the captain that called me and said, hey, we've chosen you for the next spot. And I said, hey, can I call my wife and will you give me a week? Will you let me pray about this and think about it for a week? And he couldn't believe it. He was like, really? I mean, yeah, I want to go or I wouldn't put in for it. But now that I actually have a decision to make, will you just allow me a few days to make a pretty informed and thoughtful decision? Oh yeah, sure.
How long did it take you? What did Valerie say?
Yeah, no time, 3 hours.
Oh.
I took the week, but I could have told him 3 hours later.
Well, why'd you take the week?
Well, when you decide that in 3 hours, what if I sleep on it and wake up the next day and it's...
Well, you just told me you just did that 7 nights in a row. I'm
What?
just thinking about the captain right now.
Oh,
You said you still took the week to decide
yeah,
that.
he gave me the week. So I'm not going to tell my captain I need a week and then come back the next day and be like, all right, I'm ready. You know, I'm going to take the week.
Could have. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have.
So you went to the police academy.
I went to the police academy.
So you come back and then like, are you on patrol?
Yeah.
Is that how that works? I mean, like literally you come back and now you're on patrol.
Yeah.
Wow.
I come back and, you know, I went through the police academy, graduated first in my class. I had a chip on my shoulder. My last academic experience wasn't positive, and I sort of labeled myself in a bad way, and I was pissed off about it, you know, years later. And I wanted to figure out, like, was I really this smart kid, or did I just have a bunch of help? And I worked really hard and graduated first in my class, came back, and
You have never told me that.
Really?
Never.
I had a goal. And, you know, on the first day I had this planned out, you know, I start getting to know some people around the room, and I've got, you know, there's 2 girls in there that are just graduated with master's degrees in criminal justice, and they're college age kids, and they're, you know, one of them's a firearms instructor on the side. And I'm like, man, well, within a week, there's this running joke between all of us because people are starting to size each other up, because this is a thing. Like, law enforcement agencies back then are asking you in interviews, where did you graduate in your class? And most of them want to hear a single digit number. You know, They don't need you to be number 1, but they want to hear, they don't want you to be, you know, I was 26 out of 30, you know, they don't want to hear that.
All right. How many people were in the class?
We started with like 34 and graduated with 28.
What would happen to those 6? Is that just a dropout, or
Yeah.
they just literally don't make it?
Drop out, kick out, failure. Yeah. There's a few of those. There was one guy that got arrested during the process.
The sweet irony.
He got into some kind of crap happened like at a shopping mall or something, and he identified himself as police and got arrested. But that's what you know, you talk to those guys training future police officers. You want that guy out of there. You don't want that guy with a badge on.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I go back and I'm on patrol, and man, I tell you, I could go into a 2-hour talk on how things had went for me in corrections and some things I went through there. And there's still some places where it's not feelings anymore because the emotions are gone. And there's a place where I was blackballed for probably 2 or 3 years. And it was, I honestly look back and I think it was people that were maybe threatened by me a little bit. And maybe, you know,
By being first in your class?
No. This before I went to the police academy. This is part of that equation that
Because
took
you
me
did a really good job as a corrections officer?
I think so. I think you had some people who'd sort of, through seniority, through time, had gained a position. And then you have this young guy come in and trying to do things right, and he's a go-getter, and he's a, you know, man, that was not popular. That was not a popular place to be in that jail. And I've talked since then with young dudes that are in there, and they start having some of the same feelings, and I'm able to offer encouragement and you know, I don't want to say coaching, that's a weird word, but some dudes that are living life, and they're trying to sort of climb this ladder to get to a certain place in a certain way, and they're running into some politics, I guess you would say.
So you had ambitions as a 20-year-old, or you just happy to have a job?
Both. I mean, I didn't go as a 20-year-old. I didn't go to the sheriff's office not wanting to go to patrol. I didn't sit and dream about being a corrections officer. I didn't. It was once I got there and started studying and developing some skills as a corrections officer that I learned, like, there's nowhere on the planet that I can learn better how to communicate with people than right here. You know, I recognized that early, and I was able to, that was sort of my training ground.
Yeah.
My friends were at the university and I was in C block, you know. And I mean, I say that
only sounds funny now.
I know.
Couldn't have been funny then.
It was not funny.
Yeah.
No, it was not funny.
I'm going to cough. You're going to have to edit this out.
Nah. That's a great cough. I wouldn't edit that for the world.
Oh, my word. Went to the vet, and I was not in and out. So
No.
I'm allergic to everything. So I can feel it.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are so many stories embedded in here, and I am strong enough to resist. So
Sure.
we will return because
Yeah,
you
for
promise
sure.
me that all the time when
It's
you're
a
asking me
lifetime of
personally.
stories, man. I got them.
So let's just keep, I don't know, is this a ladder we're talking about right now, or is this more of like the journey? There may be some elevation, there may be some plateaus.
Yeah, I'm
But, like-
still on the bottom of the ladder. I
Yeah.
mean, if
Are
there
we
is
going to climb a ladder? By the time you're a detective, have you climbed a ladder?
It depends on how you look at it. If
Okay.
you look at it from rank alone, just a little bit, a step or two. But if you look at it from developing a skill set that's broad
Yeah.
and not deep, then yeah, I'm climbing a ladder. I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the place now where once I get out of that jail and I come back, they put me under the service of Lieutenant Cheryl Holloway. And I didn't realize it then. I did realize it. I didn't understand it. Cheryl Holloway started out as a young person in the jail. And I didn't know then what importance that was going to become for me because I instantly had a cheerleader. Like she sees me do things the way that a lot of those old heads, that's the way they want to see it done. They want you to come in, start in the jail, learn how to talk to people, learn the clientele, learn how to, they're bringing guys in here that their parents have put them through the academy and they hire them on the first day and they got to teach them how to pat somebody down. Well, now that entire patrol shift looks to me to teach them how to pat someone. I've been a corrections officer, man. Nobody can search people better than I can. You understand?
Yeah.
So there's value there. And I'm the brand new guy in patrol going to training, but every call we go on, they're calling me by name because they know me. They've spent time with me. And that you don't know how far that went for me. And I hope there's some young corrections officer that'll hear my voice at some point and I can tell them it's talked about as an idea, but it was real for me. When I go to a domestic call and some guy, hey, Paris, please come here. Paris, come here. Because he knows my ears and he knows my ability to talk and communicate and he has a relationship with me. Now, that's valuable when crap has hit the fan.
Yeah.
It's a big deal because you're at a local jail. It's not a huge community. When we think about the cities in our country, this isn't that big of a place.
Yeah.
And that clientele is a boiled down version of that even. It's the same people all the time that are running in and dealing with the police there. But Cheryl, she became a big deal for me because I was so used to, part of it may have been just trying to be that good boy and seeking confirmation, but I was so used to like trying really hard. And if there's a way that I can do this, I want to do it as good as I can, no matter what it is. And I would just run into walls face first, man. Just people that would just take the ideas or the things that I was working on and would just blow holes in it and just tell you why it's stupid or why it's wrong, or they try to beat you down. Like that's where I came from in the jail. And it was like, man, I can't put words around it. To come out onto patrol and to have someone that saw something special, because I mean, Paul, I'm still in training. That's a whole nother story. Like I lived in a world at the time where you could, if you came out and had this skill set, especially coming from the jail, you could skip out on a lot of your training. But my dad talks to people. We've said that before, haven't we?
Mm-hmm.
And he ran into Doug Town while I was in the police academy.
Yep.
And Doug Town was overtraining at the sheriff's office at the time. And they were putting in a brand new training program for patrol officers. And my dad talked to him and was like, yeah, I worry about my boy. It's a dangerous world and all that. And Doug Town being the soldier that he is, the Boy Scout that he is, he looked at my dad in the eyes and said, I promise you, he'll get every bit of training that we have to offer. And Doug told me from the first day, he was like, you're a sharp kid and you're going to feel like you don't need to be in training and you're going to be in training still. You're not sure.
You didn't skip one bit.
We're not skipping anything.
Yeah.
No, which then it was a little frustrating to me, but now I look back and I'm like, man, because that's not what I got in the jail. When I was in the jail, buddy, they take you in, the first night I was there, I booked like 34 people. And the next day I went into C-Pod and they hit group release and said, see you later. And 12 hours I spent with people, and I'm 20. I don't know how to talk to people like this.
Yeah.
That's the training I had there. Now, later on, I went through quite a bit of training. But on patrol, I went straight from the police academy into a brand new FTO training program on patrol and spent weeks and weeks and weeks progressing through it. Starting out with me riding in the passenger seat and not saying a lot, which I was glad to do. And then you progress and it ends up with your trainer riding in the passenger seat and not saying a lot. And eventually they recommend you for release,
Yeah.
But I went through, I forget the parameters on how long it would be at its max. And I went through the maximum amount.
Yeah. All right. So this whole tale that we're spinning right now, I'm not going to fast forward. I'm literally going to skip to the next scene.
Yeah.
Is the SRO the next scene?
Yeah, essentially. I spent some time on patrol, and it's not, I'm not there for that long, probably 2 years. And
On patrol or as an SRO?
on patrol.
Okay.
Same for SRO. That's going to move quickly and that's kind of where that story was going. Beating my head against the wall in corrections turned into like, oh my God, where's this guy been? I'm getting some real love from some high up places because of what I'm doing on the day to day. And it's easy for me. It's not as hard as I was working back in the jail. I just wasn't getting that same. Anyway, a couple years on patrol, and a couple SRO spots came open, and that's back when SRO positions were competitive, man. You had to apply, and you had to interview, and you had to sort of compete against some people to get it, and I was able to get one.
Are they not as competitive now because there's more?
No. I don't know what it is. And I'm afraid to ask those questions politically because I don't know if it's, it could be a litany of things. It could be just people don't want to go into a school. It could be a supervisory style. I don't know the answers to those questions, and I won't even pretend, and I'm not going to ask them because I don't want to spin anything in a weird way. But I will never understand why young men with families who are trying to progress through a patrol career wouldn't want to do that same job in a school from 8 o'clock to 3:30 on the weekdays, be home with their families at night, and build connections in the community that will, you're going to see in my story that's it, essentially what's going to lead me to teaching long before I ever thought I would.
Yeah. Corrections officer, transport. You go to the academy, you're on patrol, SRO.
Yeah.
What's next?
I go to school. While at the end of my patrol career, I start back to school at Cleveland State. I'm going to go get an associate's degree.
Now, but you went through with a cohort, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Of other officers. Patrol officers?
Yeah, we negotiated a cohort with Cleveland State to, hey.
Who's we? Is this your idea? Is this someone else's idea? Is it captain's idea?
I won't claim it as my own idea, but it's something we had talked about for a long time, and we would talk to the training people and, hey, how can you help us? And I want to say Doug Town had some, I think he was a big part of that. If I'm misspeaking, I'm sorry. But anyway, it just came about that, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to open this up for, because we have several interested at CPD and we have several interested at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff's office agrees to allow their north training room at the Justice Center to be used, a certain night every week or whatever for a classroom.
And how many folks enter into this?
I would say less than 10. There's probably, I don't know. It's hard to remember. It's somewhere 10, 12 folks, because we pick up a couple of like Meigs County folks. We pick up maybe a Polk County or two. And
let's call it a dozen. How many people, does anybody not finish?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
And is this whole cohort is getting an associate's?
That's right. We're going from a high school education to an associate's degree in criminal justice.
And that was the purpose for the cohort. All these folks had their diploma, had some experience.
But they're working full time.
Yes.
And we're going to try to make it to where they can still be, kick butt officers and do their job well, and obtain this degree.
What's the purpose to this? Is this connected to some ambition of what's next for you, or?
Yeah, I was getting to the point to where law enforcement wise, I was getting close to just milking the blood out of the turnip with just a high school education. The next competitions I enter into, I'm going to be entering into them against bachelor's and master's degrees, and I need to have at least a letter or two by my name in these conversations.
So does that lead to becoming a detective?
It makes me a lot more competitive.
Is that what, I mean, do you leave Ocoee Middle School as an SRO and that's where you went?
Yeah. Now, I will tell you, one thing that helped was while I was when I was the SRO at Ocoee Middle, every summer they either put you on patrol or they put you into court security or they put you into CID. And
what's CID?
Criminal Investigations Division, like with the detectives. You can go work with them. And partly luck and partly some people in our training division who had, first of all, started out as a corrections officer and were in my corner. And second of all, had been a fan of my work on patrol. And third of all, every patrol officer, when they go take a theft report or a burglary report, do you know where it goes the next morning and is read out loud in front of everybody?
No, not a clue. To
a conference table full of all of the detectives at your department. So every morning when you're a detective, you have roll call, and all of the reports that came in overnight are read out loud to everybody. And then they're dispersed amongst those, whatever detective.
These long reports, I mean, is this 30 seconds or is this 6 minutes? I mean, like.
Per report?
Yeah.
It just depends on the type of report, but it's typically just a synopsis of events.
Like I'm a teacher and I hang out with teenagers, but I've also have been in places where adults have to listen to things being read.
Yeah.
Like, is this a boring process or everybody's engaged and going, all right, this is the work at hand?
A little bit of both. Yeah. I mean, it becomes monotonous.
Yeah. And that's kind of where
every room of adults,
I leap there.
Every room of adults you go in has that like negative Nancy guy that tries to bring his friends and be like, here. But I will tell you, let's say there's 200 people at the sheriff's office and there's 14, 15 detectives. Typically, in a good structure, those 14, 15 people are your sharpest cats that aren't lieutenants or sergeants. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So, yes, there's a negative Nancy or two here and there that's, oh my God, this is boring. But the detectives that I became a part of were like a batch of Wolverines. Like they were waiting on you to break into somebody's house. We're going to come get you and we're going to put you in prison. We led the state every year I was there. And it's not because of me. It's because I joined a great team. But I said all that to say my patrol reports had been read in that room. And one thing I did learn in that room is if you can't write, they'll make fun of you out loud and in the open. But that is going to lead to me as an SRO being handpicked from detectives in training. Hey, when it's summertime, send him to us.
Gotcha.
And that's my ticket. It's not my ticket in, but it's what causes me in a place where I felt like it was way too early for me to put into CID. I felt like I needed some more time in. I put in for that position because of people calling me and saying, you need to put in for this position. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I put in for the position. I get the position against a master's degree and against a bachelor's degree. And those guys probably still hate me to this day. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I go to CID. And that's what, if I could take my training in CID and experience that all over again, it would be great because the sheriff was starting a new deal. Hey, every detective we hire, I want him to do 2 weeks with a drug detective, 2 weeks with a property detective, and 2 weeks with a persons crime detective. So as you can imagine, I got to learn, and they don't put you with their crappiest detective. They put you with the best. When I was a persons crime trainee, I went with Dwayne Scoggins, who's, he's not a big popular guy. He wouldn't want to be a popular guy, but he's literally a gem in our community. And he, at the time, he's that dude in CID that if you've got a question, you go to that guy and he's going to tell you the right way. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling now, but
nope.
Shout out Dwayne Scoggins. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it. Is like gold to me, the time that I spent with that guy.
Yeah.
It's one of those life-changing things. And he don't even know it. He just got up and came to work. That's all he did.
Yeah.
But it was a big impact on me.
Yeah.
And then they put me at the end of my training. I didn't know where I was going the whole time.
You don't request?
No. I mean, you kind of hear whispers and this and that, but they were doing a pretty good job of like, we're going to get them over here. And then because I think the sheriff wanted to leave it open to, if during this time I have a detective who wants to transfer, this is a good time for them to do it, because as soon as that spot opens up, I can plug this new trainee into it. And I think he fills you out on where you want to be too. And I knew if narcotics was a young man's game, I wasn't going to be a young man that much longer, as far as, not in years, but in, I want to be, out all night and on drug people time. I knew if I was ever going to do that, I needed to do it now. And it worked out. That's where I went. I went to narcotics for about a year and a half. And then, some of the property guys wanted me to come over pretty bad, and I wanted to go pretty bad. I think I got my taste of, all right, I can wrap my head around a narcotics investigation now. And I've got a kid that's, I guess he's in middle school at that time. And, I want to get to a little more solid place. And so I transferred to, somebody either left the department or maybe transferred out into supervision on patrol. Cause that's kind of the level you're at. You can make almost a lateral transfer from detective to like patrol sergeant.
But you didn't.
No. Somebody else did, and they opened up a spot in property, and I went there.
Nah, but I don't even mean that either. I mean, like, okay, so you go to property, and then you go interview for a teaching position.
Yeah. I'm in property, and just decided I wanted to go on out to do something else. But yeah, that's when, incidentally, I guess I had plans on doing some other things at the sheriff's office, and just got a phone call one day that there was a teaching position coming open at Walker Valley, and my name may or may not have been kicked around in a couple conversations, and I ought to consider it. So.
May or may not. It did. I think I was even in some of those conversations of, hey, if this happens, can we get this guy? I think it was kind of a no-brainer.
Well, no, it wasn't a no-brainer. You know how that went down, right?
Well, I mean, I know Doug Town was an easy choice. If we were going to do that, he had Walker Valley roots, and I mean, he's Doug Town for crying out loud.
Yeah, this is.
And if Doug Town didn't want to do that, then we're going to need someone else to teach this criminal justice class, right?
Yeah,
After Dean Anderson had been there since the beginning.
Yeah, I think since the beginning. And I honest to God, I think you're nailing it. I think that's why my name gets brought up, is like, hey, Doug Town is the easy choice. And I even said something like that in my interview up there, was, hey, I'm aware of what I'm up against, and I know who Doug Town is, and rightly so. But I can remember vividly saying, like, don't just glance over my resume. Like, this is something that, I'm having a really good time in my career, and I'm growing quickly. I'm not here because I'm not happy. This isn't a twilight. This was the words I said to Nat. This ain't a twilight tour at the end of my career. This is a shift that I want to make. And I didn't think this opportunity would be available here for a long time, so I'd kind of put it on the back burner. But now that it's here, I want you to take a serious look at me. And Nat would even tell me now, like, yes, Doug Town was Doug Town, but like that made it tough. It was a tough. Anyways, they hired Doug, rightly so, man. I would have hired him too, for sure. He was the SRO there for a long time, and just Walker Valley through and through. Put a couple kids through there, and and he's Doug Town,
all of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's not what I don't think that's what he wanted to do. I think he loved the idea of it, and he did a good job while he was there, and, sort of gracefully moved on to back in. I think he went back into training at the sheriff's office. And then my phone rang again. So,
yeah. All right. Watch where I go with this.
Yeah, man.
Can a detective get away with something that a corrections officer can't? And I'm not even going to give any context to that at all, just for fun.
Okay. Well, This is one of those, it's a two-part answer.
Okay, good.
Are we in Bradley County?
I told you I'm not going to give you any context whatsoever. And I just want to see what you do with it.
Listen.
A detective is not a corrections officer, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Can a detective get away with something that a corrections officer can't? I can't wait to see how you answer that.
I'm going to say, realistically, yes. By rule, no. But realistically, yes. Now, if you start saying they're breaking the law, then I'm going to say no.
Not even saying that.
But
you did say what'd you just say? By rule?
By rule, they cannot.
So in the history classroom, we talk about segregation.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about de jure segregation and de facto segregation. Familiar with those terms at all?
No, not really.
De jure by law, de facto by fact, by custom, by tradition.
So you set me up.
Did segregation exist in this country by law? Yes. By custom and tradition? Yes. So up north, did we still have segregation?
Do we still have segregation?
No. Well, I'm not going there. Did we have segregation in the north at the exact same time the south had segregation by law?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, we did.
Did we?
Yeah, we did. 100%. That's why we study in history segregation in two ways, de jure and de facto. And which is harder to change? Is it harder to change the law or is it harder to change custom?
I'd say it's harder to change a custom.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Because just because you change the law doesn't mean that things just automatically disappear. Now, I just went to this academic thing, but I'm coming it back. I'm reeling it back for all these citizens out there that want to ask these questions. Now, you said there was a two-part to this, so we're not breaking any laws. So you can keep it professionally if you want to, but can a detective get away with something that a corrections officer can't?
Yeah,
where are you going to go with that?
Well, in the context of the conversation we've been having,
that's right.
That detective is he's put in some time. He's made it through you didn't just hire that guy straight in as a detective in the local sheriff's office. He's probably at least been on patrol and maybe done some other assignments, and he has, his work, his or her, who they are. So if they haven't broken any laws, maybe they've made a mistake or whatever, but it's not typical of who they are. It's not how they got to where they are. And then, yeah, you could survive that. Oftentimes your corrections officer, that's level one. It's more often than not that corrections officer does something and makes a mistake, and it's early in their career, and it's, oh my word,
So I use the word grace in a professional setting. Does the detective get more grace if they make a mistake?
I would say.
Yeah.
I would say, but again, if you have healthy leadership, then they're going to give that grace to the corrections officer too, but you're not going to get it to the extent that person that's been there for 15 years and we know who they are every day. If you're a corrections officer there. Now, if we're talking a 10, 15 year corrections officer. Yeah. Cause there's some corrections officers back there that they know better than they know the detectives because they've been there and they've done that. And if that's not typical of who they are, this is a mistake, this is an isolated incident, that grace still abounds.
Yeah. So there's about to be a break in this podcast. You ready? Like a literal earthquake break, and we're going to go a different direction.
Okay.
But this whole first piece was the gift that we're giving to anyone that ever listens to us and has any interest in law enforcement and everything that you have ever been and all the experiences you have and all of these kids that you teach and all the people that you come across. And when you say things like that, I love it when you say this. If there's ever anyone listening that I can give any encouragement to, any advice to, anything that's willing to listen and consider, everything we just did served that purpose. Mm-hmm. It was my way of inviting you into this space and time and going, hey, come on, man, tell us a piece of that story.
Yeah.
And we can totally take out every bit of that and go, oh, tell us more. It's very layered. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it when you asked me a little ways back about just how in the world did I get to Lee?
Mm-hmm.
That was very intentional of like, how in the world did you get to that seat right there of us being both teachers, us doing this thing, but like that had to get there. There were some steps there along that journey.
Mm-hmm.
Now you also gave me some homework, so it got me thinking. And so I landed on the word grace after all of that. And can a detective get away with something? How much grace can I give to a police officer when they speed as a regular citizen? See, I just went a totally different direction.
Yeah, sure.
How about when they're texting on their phone and they're driving?
Mm-hmm.
How about when they change lanes and they don't even put on their blinker?
Tune in to part 2 of this episode to hear Paul make a transition to a special Christmas message.
Man, that's downright mindful. You've been listening to Downright Mindful with your hosts, Matt Paris and Paul Salzville. Produced by Josh Morris. Intro and outro production by Derek Kinsey. You can find us wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Thanks for listening.